Dan's question, involves you using BlackBird as an auto trader, right? So in yesterday's workshop, we built some signals in Bloodhound. So I'm going to load those signals into BlackBird right now, right? So we just go to Signals in Bloodhound and then open up the menu here. And then right there where it says template file, that's where you load in the Bloodhound file that you want to run inside of BlackBird, that you want the trade signals from, right? So if you hit the little ellipses button there, that opens up, right, the Bloodhound interface. So let's hit File. And so there's yesterday's workshop. So let's get that loaded in. All right. And just a little tip here for everybody. When you are loading, your Bloodhound system in, it is always a good idea to switch over to the Logic tab and take a look at your entry signals here. All right, like so. Whoop, there we go. So it's always a good idea just to look at all the leaders and make sure everything is connected up correctly. Specifically, what you really want to look for is the result node, right? You want to make sure that result node is connected up into the right spot. When you're, playing around with your Bloodhound system, and you're debugging and testing and stuff, it's easy to forget that you might have left it, connected up incorrectly, like that. You might have left the result node connected up, in some kind of testing manner when you closed out Bloodhound. Okay, so yeah, that was connected correctly, so I'm just going to hit the cancel button. All right. And next, we want to select our entry signal template, right? And let's see what. Oh, oops, sorry. I hit cancel. I meant to hit. I should hit OK. I actually canceled loading the file into Bloodhound. So let's do this one more time. There we go. Hit the OK button. There we go. So now we can see our Bloodhound file is loaded in, and now from the entry signal pull down menu, I can select, right, the logic template for my entry signals. And if you do have exit signals, you can enable that and then select the logic template that generates exit signals. So, but this one does not have exit signals, so we'll leave that off. So now that I have Bloodhound loaded into BlackBird for the entry signals, what I can do is just click OK. And you'll see here in a minute, right, there's a little message coming from BlackBird telling you, in order to load Bloodhound, you need to reload the chart, right? So let's go in, hit F5 to reload the chart. That's going to restart our strategy. And so once this is loaded up, we'll have some Bloodhound signals that I can use to explain Dan's question here. So it is a little detailed. So, all right. So the next thing, once Bloodhound's loaded up, right, you can see that obviously the output, doesn't look correct, right? And that's because if you look at, right, if you look at the top of your chart, right, where Bloodhound is, right, you can see that there's no logic selected. So you do need to go in and select the logic template. And now Bloodhound's calculating that result. And once it's finished, right, there we go. Okay, so there is our results there. And wow, it sure does generate a lot on the YM. Let's see here. Let me pick something out here. Here we go. All right, so we'll work with this signal here. So so if I remember correctly here, Dan, when there is a signal like this, Sometimes, right, a long signal might be on an up bar, but sometimes it might be on a down bar. And so so if the signals are always on an up bar, right, then what Dan needs to do is pretty darn simple. He just places an entry order, right, at the close of the bar, right? Pretty straightforward. But if it is a down bar, well, then he wants to place the entry order at the open of the bar, right? So basically, it's how the question is, how do you place an entry order at the top of the body, right? So the top of the body, if it's a long signal. And if it's a short signal like here, how do you place an entry order always at the bottom of the body, right? Because sometimes, maybe the signal might occur on an up bar. Maybe this short signal took an extra bar and it might have fired off on this up bar. So how do you place a short, at the bottom of the body, regardless of whether it's a down bar or an up bar? Right. So that is what Dan is trying to solve here. And I'm trying to see if I can find some examples. Yeah, here we go. Great. Right. So here's a couple examples where it's a short signal, but it is an up candle. So in this particular case, right, the entry order is at the open of the bar, right? And over here it's at the open of the bar. Whereas normally, let's see if I can, let's just go back here, right? Normally, short signals are going to be on down bars, and so you would place the entry order at the close of the body. So how do you, flip back and forth between different, the different open or closed body prices, right? That's his question. So, all right. So, we have our Bloodhound signals loaded. So now let's get into the real question here. So let's see. So I take it you probably, want to place a limit order. And let's see, sometimes you might need to place a stop entry. It all depends. It's kind of hard to know which one. And literally right here on my chart is a great example, right? So we can see a short signal on this down bar. So we'd want to place an entry order at the close. But, right, if you look at the next bar, price had popped up a tick or two, right? So if you place an order below a short order below the market, that cannot be a limit order, right? The exchange will reject your limit order. It kind of depends on the broker, but typically, if you're backtesting using NinjaTrader, they will reject that if you're trying to do some backtesting as an invalid order. Some brokers might automatically convert that to a market order for you, so it doesn't get rejected, right? But you can see that, placing a limit order below the market could present a problem, right? Because we can see that the market popped up a little bit. And let me pull this back here. There. Right. So you never know what the market's going to throw at you, especially when you're trying to place orders there. Sometimes the market might pop up a tick or two, or sometimes, it might drop down a tick or two. You never know. So to resolve this issue here, BlackBird has this enable auto order type selection, right? Now this automatic order type, it was originally designed for working with indicators, right? So if you're placing your entry order based on some indicator plot, well, you never know if that indicator, is going to give you a price above or below the market, right? So when you're utilizing indicators, you never can tell. where that indicator is plotting. So yeah, so this was originally created for indicators, but we can actually see that in this particular case, it's going to come in handy here as well, right? It's going to be really useful. So now, of course, this cannot guarantee that your order is always going to be accepted. The markets move so fast that by the time BlackBird gets its data, makes its decision, and it sends it to the market, the market could have moved already to a new spot. So you just, always keep that in mind, that really there's no software out there that's fast enough to always keep up with the market, and create a perfect solution. So if you do find that, when you're trying to place your entry orders like this, and you're just getting a lot of rejected orders, and like I said, NinjaTrader's simulation account and its backtesting is very strict. It's a lot stricter than what most brokers allow. So most brokers, would allow you to throw a limit order. Well, I shouldn't say most, but I know that some brokers allow you to throw a limit entry order on either side of the market. And if your limit order is on the wrong side, it'll just fill it as a market. Some brokers do, some brokers don't. So, right, this is just something that you guys are going to have to figure out, because there is no one size fits all within the trading community, basically. So if you are having a problem with rejected orders, well, what is the solution to that? Well, the only solution left is to just place market orders. Just get in, right? Just get into the trade wherever the current market is. Sometimes you'll get filled at a better price, and sometimes you'll get a couple of ticks of slippage, right? So, all right. So for now, we'll just go with placing a limit order and hope that works out. All right. And so now to selecting, how do we determine whether it's the close or the open that we want? Well, for the initial placement, you have to pick one. You can only pick one, and that's it. All right. There's no decision-making tree within the placement here. Right. So we're just going to go with the close, because, just looking at these entry signals, if it's a short, it looks like the vast majority of the times it's going to be a down bar. And if it's a long signal here, we can see it looks like the majority of the time it's going to be an up bar. Right. So we'll just go with the close. Now, to be able to, if the close is on the wrong side of the body, well, we can use the trailing actions to move the entry order to the open. Right. Now, this trailing action will introduce like a few milliseconds of time delay. But basically this is how it has to be done within BlackBird. So, all right, so let's enable the auto trailing there. But at the same time, if you did kind of write your own custom strategy that was that needed to figure out, do I place my order at the close or the open? Well, your own custom code is also going to take a few milliseconds making that decision. So, so really there isn't going to be much difference between, just placing your order at the close immediately and then making that decision later on versus a custom written strategy that makes the decision first and then, which delays getting that order in. So, all right, so trailing actions. Let's make a new trailing roll here, and we'll just give this a name. something like, I don't know, move to open. And so the action here is going to be, so instead of moving, right, our entry order to the last price, we're going to set this up to move it to the open price. And you can see, so for long trades, it'll move to the open. Or for short trades, it's going to move it to the open. And that's it, right? So we're going to move that order to the, or move that entry to the open. And so now we need to make that, or create that decision maker, right? So we can use the triggers here to have BlackBird decide, if it's a long trade, if it's a long signal, long trade, which price is higher? Is it the close that's higher, or is it the open that's higher? And to make that decision, we're going to use price versus indicator. So that's the trigger here. All right, so let's see here. Input I guess it doesn't matter which price we use, but I'm going to change input A to the open price, because I think this will make more sense. And then input B, instead of it being an indicator, right, I'm going to switch it to price and switch this to the closing price, right? So we can compare the open price to the closing price. So if it's a long trade here, then if A is A being the open price, so if the open price is above the close, well, right, then that becomes true, right? So if this is true, right, if A is above B, if that's true, then the trailing rule will move your entry order to the open price. And if it's a short trade, well, if A is below B, right, if the open is below the closing price, then, right, then this trailing rule will move your entry order to the open price, right? So that is our decision maker right there. Is price. We're using the price versus indicator trigger condition here to look at this condition of what, is the open above or below the close. And if it is, if it's true, then BlackBird will execute the action, which is simply to move our entry order to the open price, and we're done. So that's how you get that decision-making tree incorporated, right? And so it would be the same thing as if you were writing your own custom code, right? If you're writing your own custom code, you have to, the code has to go, is the open above, the close? If it is, well, let's use the open price, right? If for a short trade, if the open is below the close for a short trade, well, then let's use the open price. Right? So there you go. That's how you do it. So on the options tab, we'll just run through this again here. We'll summarize this again. So on the options tab, you just need to pick a price. And so we'll just go with the closing price, because that seems to be the majority of the time, what's going to be used. And then we'll have the trailing actions, analyze, compare the open versus the closing price. And if the open is the correct price, then we'll move it to the open, and we're done. So, all right, so that's it. That's how you auto adjust your entry order, to the correct price there. Yeah. And for anybody, who kind of wants to reverse that, so let's say you want to place a limit order, at the bottom of the body, so that the market has to make a deeper pullback. If you want to reverse that, well, you just go into the trigger column here, right? Go into the price versus indicator, and obviously you would just reverse this logic. You would want, for a long trade, you want A below B, right? And you would want A above B, right? You just reverse that logic. So, but actually, probably what you really want to do is for your initial placement, you probably want to put that at the open price first, right? So reverse the prices here, change the close to the open price, and then in your trailing rules, you'll probably want to put the closing price in A, the open price in B, just kind of reverse everything around, right? So if you want the opposite results. So yeah. Okay, so that would be Dan's question there.